From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade. With mounting deaths and hundreds of new COVID-19 cases, the governor offers dollars of support. Specifically today, the Billings Chamber of Commerce, the county attorney, and the state come together to get resources to help with enforcement here in Yellowstone County. Well, another jump in COVID-19 related deaths today. MTN confirms 12 more victims who've died across Montana, now bringing the statewide total death toll to 242. 3 of those deaths are out of Yellowstone County, where we've now lost 77 people. Well, late yesterday, Montana's total case count surpassed 20,000. And at this point tonight, that total is up to 20,706. More than 13,000 people have recovered across Montana. Well, Yellowstone County Health Officer John Felton says we are running out of options to slow this virus down, and he hopes no shirt, no shoes, no mask becomes the norm at all local businesses. Now, those comments came today as the county attorney and Governor Bullock's legal team worked to rehash the options of how to best enforce state and local COVID restrictions. Well, Ralph Graybill, the governor's chief legal counsel, says CARES Act dollars are available to the county to hire more people to enforce restrictions. Yellowstone County Attorney Scott Twidope says his office has received thousands of complaints, most of which wouldn't hold up in court. Now, the state is now recommending that county attorneys prosecute violations through civil court, meaning people cannot be given people can be given fines, not jail time. Now, Graybill says the civil process is much more speedy than the criminal process, which could take up to 90 days to complete. If people aren't wearing a mask, business owners can call the local authorities to have the problematic customers removed.
If you're running a business and you have a patron coming in that is not wearing a mask and they refuse to comply with putting on a mask, which is required under the directive, we tried to take that off of you. That both the chief and the sheriff said you can immediately call them and they will send someone down to deal with that person and issue a trespassing violation to make sure you're in compliance.
Now, the current health order runs through midnight on November 9th. Now, the state reports the bed use and capacity at 5 major hospitals across Montana is now at more than 90%. Although that is true for the 2 Billings hospitals, it doesn't tell the whole story. St. Vincent shows 45 COVID-19 patients today, with about a half dozen beds still available. Billings Clinic shows at 57 COVID-19 patients and no beds available. So we touched bases with the clinic and learned that those numbers do not include the hospital's surge plan that's been in place for several weeks. Those beds are off campus in other areas of the hospital, so that plan is larger. So although Billings Clinic is busy right now, it still has hospital capacity. Well, today Riverstone Health also pulled back restrictions on places of worship. The amended order allows churches and synagogues to have up to 25 people gather if the facility does not exceed 75% of capacity. Now, the order issued on Monday allowed up to just 50%. During the COVID roundtable meeting this afternoon, John Felton said this brings places of worship to the same capacity as businesses. Congregation Aaron has only held in-person services for Jewish holidays, and at this time it will not change with the new order.
Functionally, it wouldn't affect us for regular services because our regular service goers would be under that capacity. We have followed a very, very conservative, the Jewish holidays that just ended last weekend. We did allow people back into the building, but we were extremely careful to make sure that we were well underneath capacity recommendations.
Now, the rabbi says the special services reached about 30% capacity. Well, we now know the suspect shot and killed by Billings police this week after he allegedly pulled a gun on officers. Yellowstone County Coroner Cliff Mahoney tells Q2 that 29-year-old Cole Stump died from multiple gunshot wounds. Police responded to the 2200 block of Avenue C on Monday night to find 3 individuals known to law enforcement. As officers tried to detain Stump, they wrestled him to the ground, and that's when police say Stump pulled out a gun from his waistband. At that time, officers Rylan Nelson and Justin Bickford fired shots at the suspect. A new election poll from Montana State University shows what most campaign watchers in the state believe, that the top races in Montana are all competitive. Results showed Democrat Steve Bullock leading Republican Steve Daines in the state's marquee Senate race and single-digit margins in the contest for governor, House, and president. Tonight, MTN chief political reporter Mike Dennison has details and some insight.
First, let's go straight to the poll results in the major races. In the Senate race, Democratic Governor Steve Bullock is leading Republican incumbent Steve Daines 49% to 47%. For governor, Republican Greg Gianforte, the state's current congressman, is leading Democratic Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney 47% to 42%. In the race for U.S. House, Republican State Auditor Matt Rosendale leads Democrat Kathleen Williams 48% to 46%. And in the presidential race, President Trump has a 51 to 44 edge over Democratic nominee Joe Biden. The poll also asked voters if they favored approving ballot measures that would legalize recreational marijuana in the state. 49% said yes, 39% said no, and 12% said they hadn't decided. The poll is based on mail questionnaires returned by about 1,600 registered likely Montana voters. It also has a fairly high margin of error, plus or minus 3.9%, so it's possible that any of these races could go the other way, or the leaders could have bigger margins. But MSU political scientist David Parker says other results of the poll may indicate an edge for Democrats. For example, the poll shows that independents and younger voters strongly favor the Democratic candidates. And he says widespread use of mail ballots may boost these groups' usually low turnout.
But here I have evidence to suggest that young voters definitely prefer the Democratic candidate disproportionately, and the independent voters disproportionately prefer the Democratic candidate. So if we're going to have a much higher turnout, you can see those numbers. It could be a pretty bruising campaign for the Republicans down the ballot with that really Democratic election.
Also, President Trump beat Hillary Clinton by 20 percentage points 4 years ago in Montana, but according to this poll, is leading Joe Biden by only 7 points. Parker says that erosion of support for Trump could hurt Republicans in the state.
If we want to extrapolate from that pattern, it suggests to me that the Republican brand is a little tarnished, and perhaps as a result, this could have consequences for down ballot races.
And finally, on the Senate race, another plus for Bullock is his approval rating of 60% in the poll, compared to 52% for Steve Daines.
I think overall, people like Bullock. I think they find him personal, and I think they like the job that he's been doing with the coronavirus. And I think at the end of the day, this is the biggest concern I would have with Steve Daines.
Of course, a poll is just a snapshot in time, and this one was conducted 2 to 4 weeks ago. Since then, we've had millions of dollars spent on these races, and millions more are in the pipeline. Also, Republicans are still the majority among Montana voters, and Democrats usually have an uphill battle in any statewide race year. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thanks, Mike. Now you can see the full poll results on our website, along with Mike Dennison's coverage of the results. Well, Yellowstone County Elections Administrator Brett Rutherford tells Q2 that his office has already checked in more than 4,000 voted ballots since they were first mailed out last Friday. Now, Rutherford says it will likely take the rest of this week for his office to check in the number of ballots being returned. Well, the USDA announces a new step toward fighting brucellosis. That announcement happened here in Montana. USDA Undersecretary Greg Ibeck, along with Montana Senator Steve Daines, says the USDA will continue research on brucellosis in outdoor Montana. Now, the infectious disease can severely harm cattle and wildlife. Ibeck says it has been eliminated in all other parts of the country except in the Yellowstone area. Research was stopped after 9/11, but now will pick up again.
It's going to take some time to be able to find the right research project, the most efficacious way to deliver a vaccine, either orally or through other methods that we could use in wildlife. And so, I don't expect this to, happen in a year or maybe even 2. This is something that's going to take some time.
Now, funding for that continued study will come from the USDA. Up next on tonight's MTN 530 News on Q2, although the construction of a new home for Winston the Sloth moved a bit slowly, it's now open. Wait till you see his new digs. Also ahead, we'll be kicking it with our Athlete of the Week on the soccer field.
And coming up in weather, while we had a lot of high winds today, they're starting to die down. But look what's coming around the corner our way. We do see some snow showers moving in on Saturday. We'll talk about it coming up.